Prayer is a transport system in the spirit. And that there are 4 realms in praying as we begin to engage prayer. And I said the first realm of prayer is the realm of stamina. Stamina in God's presence. Not because your will is so strong or energized, but because there is a desire for more of God that yourself cannot shut down. That desire comes in form of spiritual hunger, and it eats up your soul. So the more of him you have, the more of him you want. And as you explore that desire, a point comes when you realize that you could tarry in God's presence for a whole day, and it will be like 5 minutes. The first time I experienced this dimension, I went to the place of prayer, and suddenly light came out of the wall, and the light walked into me. And I thought I had prayed for 15 minutes, but when I checked, it was over 4 hours, 30 minutes. So I realized there is an economy of eternity that engulfs a man when he begins to engage prayer. This is why Moses was able to stay upon Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights without food. He was enveloped by eternity. And the moment he stepped into eternity, time stopped. It was the people on earth that were counting days. In the realm of the spirit, Moses was leaping from reality to reality. He wasn't progressing by time. He was progressing by reality. That was why when he came out, he said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. And God said, let there be light. That was the migrations Moses was having in the place of prayer. He traveled from the beginning of his life to his end. So much so that when Moses was about to die, he gathered Israel. And he said, I saw the Lord descending from the mountains of Paran. I saw the Holy One coming down with 10,000 of his saints. That's the battle of Armageddon. What will happen in Revelations 19. So Moses, for 40 days, journeyed from reality in Genesis 1 to Revelation 19. Because he wasn't traveling by time. He was journeying in the womb of eternity. Those who were on earth were counting days. But in the spirit, Moses was journeying from mountains to mountains. So prayer brings us into the atmosphere of eternity. This is what we call stamina in God's presence. And I said, as you build stamina in God's presence, you enter into the second level, which is the level of ascension. In the level of ascension, you are brought into intimacy with God, so that the things of the spirit are made known to you. The third realm, I said, is the realm of stillness. In the realm of stillness, you are not just brought in. God enters into you. In the realm of ascension, you are brought in. In the realm of stillness, God enters into you. So you know as you are known. It's a realm of intercourse. It is on the strength of that stillness that the fourth dimension of prayer can open up, which is administration. Because the things you say and do is no longer a function of human intelligence. It's a product of bettings that take place. Bettings. Just the way a man and a woman gives birth to a child, and that child is a hybrid from these two. You become an effulgence of God. So whatever you do is a reflection of a dimension of God. You call this a church and you look at a building, but this is not a building. This is a dimension of Christ. So when you come here, for instance, life will be dished into you. You may come here, for instance, your circumstances will crumble. You will come here, for instance, and you are promoted, because there are different dimensions in God that on the strength of intercourse, you are able to bet. So you can meet 3 prophets. One prophet can give you promotion. Another prophet can deal with sickness in your body. Another prophet can end death in your family. All of those dimensions are products of intercourse that they enter on the mountains of stillness. It's called spiritual administration. And then on the second day, we'll begin to speak about the burdens of the Father. And we said the first burden in the heart of God is the burden of intimacy. Every spirit desires that creation will come into intimacy with them. That is why spirit literally hunt men. And the reason is because spirits cannot find expression in the visible realm without the agency of man. So every spirit is looking for a man that will have intercourse with him, so that through that man, he will have access to the visible realm. So God himself, who pioneered that order, is always and almost all the time wanting intimacy with man. So one of the greatest burden of prayer is not just to receive things from God, is to know God as he is. And Jesus said, this is life eternal, that you may know him, that you may experience him, the only true God. I gave us an illustration. I said you can be married to a man. The man can buy you a car, buy you an estate. But imagine if that man were never available. The man can buy you a car, buy you an estate. Imagine if that man was unfaithful, having a relationship with another woman. The car and the estate will become trash. Because beyond the car and the estate, the man himself is what you are interested in. So intimacy with that man is what gives value to what the man gives to you. If you don't have that man to yourself, everything he gives you is trash. But if you have that man, even if he gave you a comb, that comb can be worth more than a diamond. You can keep that comb even after dying. You will hand it over to your children and say, your father gave me this comb when we started cutting. You can keep that comb for 70 years. Not because the comb has so much value, but the man who gave it to you, his heart is with you. So every time we come to God, our first priority is not to receive from God. Our first priority is to come into God and to know him so that we too will be known of him. Intimacy is the first primary motivation of prayer. And I said the second thing in the heart of the Father is the power of dominion conferred on his creation. God is never happy to see us helpless. Every time a man is helpless, is a revelation of the Spirit that backs him up. And God is a powerful God. So God wants us to reveal his power and his glory. It has never been the idea of God that man should be helpless. This is why when he created man, he said, let them have dominion. In 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 19, he spoke clearly on this matter. He said, you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, God's own special people, called forth to showcase the excellencies of God. And poverty is not part of God's excellency. Sickness is not part of God's excellency. Weakness is not part of God's excellency. So in the heart of God, he desires that every day, every time, we should be our best. And our best is not according to our strength. Our best is according to the strength of the divine. This is why I said the path of the just is as a shining light. It shines brighter and brighter unto the perfect day. The journey is from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the living God. So if they saw you yesterday and they thought they've seen anything, they've not seen anything. Your version of yesterday is the least version of you that will be seen. If they see you today and they assume, oh boy, this guy has 3 cars, God accept him. They've not seen anything. This is my least version. The next time you see me, I will be 1,000 times better than I am now. So anybody who is saying you are finished is a joker. He doesn't know what he's talking about, because the you he saw that is envious of is the least you he will ever see. The many versions of you that you unveil have not yet unveiled, because until you come into the fullness of the measure of the stature of Christ, you have not started. Where men start from is the fullness of Christ, because we're created in his image and after his likeness. So this version of you, sir, thank God for it, but this is not what God is looking for. This version of you that can raise the dead, thank God, but this is not God, what God is looking for. The version of you God is looking for is a version that when you appear, he will look at Christ and look at you, and he will know who is Christ and who is George. He will look and he will try to understand who is Prophet George, who is Christ, because you have become so one. You have become a reflection of the Christ. That is why John said, as he is, so are we in this world. It's called dominion. But I said there are too many forces in the world, so it will be difficult to attain that. And because it's difficult to attain that, when we begin to pray, God begins to provide buffers. And one of the buffers God provides for us is blessings. What does blessings do? Blessings create multiplication. It said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue, have dominion. So the first thing God does is that even though you were created with the DNA of God, there is a buffer that God puts upon you to facilitate that spiritual engineering until the process of becoming like Christ becomes faster than your effort can make. So blessing is what adds value to your effort, and that's what gives you an edge, because every time a man is blessed, it's natural for him to multiply. It's natural for him to be fruitful. What an unblessed man will do in 1 year, a blessed man can do in 1 day, because there is an operational modality in his spirit that provokes multiplication that the unblessed man does not have. I said the second buffer that God gives to us is called favor. Favor is what causes men to submit to you. There are many things that God has committed to you can't do alone. So you need men to submit to you. You need men to bring their resources. You need men to partner with you. A man who does not have favor may be the best, but he will function at the realm of the least. He said God gave favor to the Israelites, so much so that they spoiled the Egyptians. He said even the rich among the people shall entreat thy favor. David was so favored, the Bible said daily men joined themselves to David until his host became like the host of God. Have you seen the host of God before? It said 10,000 times 10,000, thousands upon thousands. That's the host of God. It's the angelic code. Myriads that you cannot number. And it's not just about the number. Nothing can stand against God successfully. So David came to a point where no force in the visible universe could stop him. The same way no force could stop God. Pray not to be David's enemy. Because if you are David's enemy, you will be crushed in any sphere of human endeavor. Because his host was like the host of God. Is the workings of favor. You may come into that place, they say there are 30 people they want to choose from. Wait until favor begins to speak. Even if they are more pretty, even if they are more educated, it doesn't matter. You carry a garment called favor. Favor will always distinguish anybody, any day, anytime. And it is in prayer that we access the possibilities of favor. And then I said, thirdly, the one that interests me the most is mercy. The Bible says mercy prevails over judgment. I may have made mistakes, and the verdict of justice is that I should be disqualified. But there is a provision called mercy. Even where covenant cannot get to, mercy can get to. Because when covenants can't stand, there is such a thing as mercy. Covenants work based on your agreement and the one you are in covenant with. If you break your part of the bargain, you weaken the potency of the covenant. But there is such a thing called mercy. That even when you fail, mercy can qualify you. Even when judgment say, be destroyed, mercy can qualify you. I say all of these provisions are made available to us through many means, but one of which is the means of prayer. So when a man have the blessing, when a man have favor, when a man have mercy, it's impossible for that man not to attain his greatest capacity. It's called the wealth of prayer. The least thing we receive in prayer is the things we ask for. Because prayer is built to bring you to the fullest of your potential. And most times the things you ask for, they are not even the things that are urgent in your life. This is why prayer is beyond what you know and think. It's a technology in the spirit. And this morning, I want to talk about the third dimension, or the third wealth that we access by prayer. It's the wealth of power. Nothing in this world works without power. Nothing. This microphone I'm carrying is exerting a weight. The reason I'm using this microphone effortlessly is because I produce a counter energy that is superior to the weight this microphone is exerting. As useful as this microphone is, if I am weak, I can't use it. So my usability of this microphone is because I can carry it. If the power in me does not counteract the power of this microphone, it will be useful, but it will be useless to me. This is how the visible realm works. Without power, nothing works. And this is because this realm was designed by power. I will show you a few things in scripture before I go to where I'm going to. You know, our generation needs to appreciate prayer. When you begin to encourage people to pray, it means those people are ignorant. One of the proof that a man truly have come into understanding is his ability and desire, willingness to yield to the things that are his advantage. So when a believer does not commit himself consciously to prayer, it means there are many things that believer doesn't know. Many things. The last thing you should be motivated to do in this life is prayer. You should pray until you die. Even the day of your departure from this world, you should be praying. Because that prayer will be a transport mode that will take you out of this realm. Anybody motivated to pray is a failure waiting to happen. Because he will contend with something someday that will be bigger than what he knows. He will contend with something someday that will be bigger than the advantages he has surrounded himself with. the unseen force that puts the believer ahead is a simple force. It's called prayer. If you don't pray, when the evil day comes, you may be shocked. The stronghold of a believer is his prayer fortress. A man without altars, even if he's living in a metal beauty, is highly vulnerable. Because when you begin to journey in life, you discover it is physical forces that are least in spiritual power. Most of the beings fighting you, they don't notice when there is a war. They can walk through metals. So your weakest shield is actually the war. Your strongest shield is what your altar can provoke upon your life. Let me show you how the spirit realm was designed and the natural realm. In order for us to understand the place of power, one of the most visible and consistent revelation of God is the revelation of an all-powerful God. There are many revelations of God. There is a dimension of God's wisdom. There is a dimension of God's excellence. There is a dimension of God's understanding. The Bible said his ways are past finding out. But one of the clearest revelations of God is the revelation of his power. In fact, when you study the Bible, different expressions of God's power, in order for a generation not to forget it, they are trapped in names. The idea behind the names of God is not for nomenclature. A spirit doesn't need to be identified by names. The idea behind the names of God is to reveal to a generation different dimensions of his power. And not just to reveal it to a generation, but so that through those names, a generation can provoke and summon those same dimensions of power. This is to let us know the top place of power in our everyday life. The day you become powerless, you become a victim. And one of the greatest provokers of power in this kingdom is prayer. So God himself will not reveal himself by his wisdom first. The first time God revealed himself, the Bible said in Genesis chapter 1 from verse 1, it said, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. The word Elohim means almighty, all sufficient, within whom there is no impossibility. So the first way God designed the world to know him is an almighty God, so almighty in power that he could create all things from nothing. So there are two root words for Elohim. The first is El, the second is Allah. El speaks about God's superlative strength and power. So if you have not known the power of God, to a very large extent you have not known God. Because the first way God revealed himself is the God of all power. It is an attempt to reveal to us the magnitude of that power that the Bible said he created the heavens and the earth. And the word create is the word bara. It means to make out of nothing. So this power was so much that God didn't need blocks. He said appear, and it appears. He was speaking from a superior realm of authority. So much so that he brought creation into being. And when the earth collapsed, he said the earth was void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Genesis 1:2. The word is bohu, tohu. It means to be without form and to be empty. Nothingness upon nothingness. It means waste upon waste. And he said Elohim again. The all-powerful God came moving upon the face of the deep. And Elohim said, light appear. So when the God of power is speaking, his goal is not to educate. When the God of power is speaking, he's creating. So when he looks at you and he says you are blessed, he's not trying to describe you. Even if you were not blessed, he's imputing blessing into your life. If you are leaving him and he says you will prosper, even if you have nobody in this world to support you, even the stones will rise to prosper you. It's a revelation of his dimension that is all powerful. The earth was void and he just spoke. He didn't need to go and carry block. He didn't need to run and carry anything on his head, because as a God of power, his word is commandment. Light appear. And light had no choice. The Bible said God called light out of darkness. Before he appeared, darkness was able to capture light, which was an impossibility according to laws of the spirit. For the light shines in the darkness comprehended it not. But darkness had summoned so much power that they were able to shield light. He called the light, and the light came out of darkness. When Job wanted to doubt him, he said, sit down, gird your loins, I will speak to you and you will answer. He said, do you know where light dwells? That's a God of power talking. He said, can you command the lightning and they run to answer to you? He said, who set the boundaries of the nations? Who set the boundaries of the sea? Can you command seasons and they respond to you? Can you summon Pleiades and Orion? So God revealed himself as a God of power to show you that existence without power is useless. There are many people living at the mercy of others. Nobody can take you to your end in life. Only power can take you there. It is futility to put your faith and your trust in another man. What you need is power, because every creature responds to power. This is why God began to reveal himself as a God of power. In Genesis chapter 3, when the man fell, he opened up another dimension of power. He wasn't called Elohim anymore. They called him Jehovah Elohim. This is not a creative power. This one now is authority. I own the realm. And on the strength of ownership, he summoned all the creation. Adam, why did you disobey me? Adam says his wife. He went to the wife. The wife said it's the serpent. And as Jehovah, he was able to judge Adam, judge Eve, and judge the serpent. What does that mean? Because of his power, he owned this world. You don't own anything in life until you are powerful. So power is not just for show. The authority for ownership is predicated on power. If you don't have power, even the one you have, they will take it from you. And there is nothing you can do about it. I'm painting this picture so that I will tell you the place of prayer in your life. Have you not seen people with a very glorious destiny, and a demon shows up and seizes that destiny, stamp it underfoot? And a man who should be a world changer is running from street to street, helpless and hopeless. When you see him in the spirit, he has the star of a king, but in the natural, he's a beggar. He said, I've seen an abomination on the face of the earth, that beggars are riding on horses, while princes are walking on barefoot. That abomination is a consequence of the absence of power. If there is no power in your life, even the things you earn will be taken from you. So God revealed the place of authority in ownership by calling himself Jehovah. So progressively in scripture, every time they met God, what they actually met was a dimension of power. They didn't necessarily meet a personality, because when Jesus came, he said, no man has seen God at any time. So they didn't actually see a person. What they saw was power. Every time they met God in the Old Testament, it was an encounter with power. So Abraham was barren, his wife was barren, and he was impotent. And God told him, the only way you can have a child is to know the God of power. And for 25 years, for Abraham to have a child, he needed to understand what is the meaning of El Shaddai. The day he knew it, Sarah took him. Because the problem was not the barrenness. The problem was the lack of understanding of the place of power in the equation of his life. The moment that power was introduced to the equation of his life, he said, Abraham did not consider his body now dead. He knew that this thing is not about me. It's about power, not the deadness of Sarah's womb. He staggered not at the promises of God through unbelief. He was strong in faith, giving thanks to God. How can a man who is 99 years old and his wife barren to the point that her womb was dead be giving thanks to God. He has for the first time understood that God is a God of power. And the moment he did, child came forth. So productivity in life is a function of power. A man without power will put in his best, but it will not be productive. Why do you think you don't need to plant grass, but they will grow so richly? Meanwhile, if you plant your flower where grasses are growing, you will need to water your flower every day for it to grow. Because productivity is not cheap. It takes power to have productivity. The grasses will negate the productivity of the flower until you introduce the equation of power. This was what Abraham discovered. So when Abraham grew old and the child became a man, God said, give me this child. He didn't doubt once. He knew Sarah didn't understand, so he didn't tell Sarah. Early in the morning, he sneaked out with Isaac. And in Genesis 22 verse 5, he said, the man to wait here is going off to worship. What was worship? He wanted to slaughter Isaac. But when he was going, Paul told us that he knew in his heart that the same God who gave him that child was able to raise him back in a figure. He has met the God of power. So he knew with this being, nothing is impossible.